Archie, you want to help me with the video? Hello beautiful friends, my name is Brittany, this is Rescues and Reads. Welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm so glad this video found you. Today of course we are here to do my August book of the month predictions, but before we jump in I just want to acknowledge that the sun is doing its thing today. We are having a very patchy cloudy day, and so the sun is going behind clouds and coming back out, and so if you notice that my video is significantly bright like it is right now and then significantly dim, that is why. So I really apologize for any lighting inconsistency. Now if you are new to this series of videos, this is just something that I do for fun to see how many books I can accurately predict that book of the month will feature in the following month for either its main selections or its add-on selections. I have been a subscriber to Book of the Month for many years now. It's been just about 7 years, and I have a lot of fun trying to determine how accurate I can be with their predictions, although I feel like this year they have kind of gone off the rails a little bit. So we are going to see how I can do. I have divided my predictions into 5 distinct genre categories. We are going to start with the mystery, thriller, horror category as per usual. And the first release I want to talk about is the newest release from Sarah Buchanan called The Locked Ward. Sarah Buchanan has been featured multiple times on Book of the Month. She has been primarily featured when she's partnering with Greer Hendricks. Most of their books, if not all of their books, when they are writing as a duo, have been featured on Book of the Month. And I do believe her solo book, House of Glass, was featured on Book of the Month as well. Now, I didn't love that book. In fact, I really did not like it. It was a huge disappointment for me. I think I gave it like a 2 stars, but I am willing to read more from her as a solo author to see if I can really enjoy her books. Was it bitter, all-consuming jealousy, pathological sibling rivalry, pure insanity? Whatever the case, and everyone has a theory, it's the crime of the decade when glamorous Georgia Cartwright, who was adopted as a newborn, is accused of killing the biological daughter of her wealthy Southern family. Georgia is locked in a psychiatric institution where the most violent offenders are held while she awaits trial. The only words she whispers when her estranged twin sister Amanda visits are, "I didn't do it, you've got to get me out of here." Amanda doesn't trust Georgia, but she can't abandon her in a place so eerie and menacing that it seems to exist in another dimension. Is Georgia the victim of a powerful family that's so depraved murder is the least of their crime? Or is Amanda being led down a path of madness into the web of a master manipulator? Nothing is as it seems in Sarah Buchanan's The Locked Ward, a shocking psychological thriller about the complex bonds of sisterhood and what happens when they are stretched to the breaking point. So I am intrigued. I was intrigued by House of Glass as well, but again, that was a letdown. So if this is featured on Book of the Month, I would absolutely snag it up and give Sarah Buchanan another chance because I have really enjoyed the books that she's written with Greer Hendricks, and I would like to be able to enjoy her as a solo author as well. Perhaps the biggest heavy hitter that we have in the mystery thriller category for August is Stacey Willingham's newest release with Forget Me Not. I believe all of Stacey Willingham's prior releases have been featured on Book of the Month. I don't anticipate that changing, but you never know with Book of the Month. Now, like with House of Glass, Stacey Willingham's last release was a huge disappointment. I really disliked that story, and so I'm really hoping that she can make a comeback, in my opinion, with this newest release. This says, 22 years ago, Claire Campbell's older sister Natalie disappeared shortly after her 18th birthday. Days later, her blood was found in a car, a man was arrested, and the case was swiftly closed. In the decades since, Claire has attempted to forget her traumatic past by moving to the city and climbing the ranks as an investigative journalist until an unexpected call from her father forces her to come back home and face it all anew. With the entire summer now looming ahead, a summer spent with nothing to do in her childhood home with her estranged mother, Claire decides on a whim to accept a seasonal job at Galloway Farm, a muscadine vineyard in coastal South Carolina, less than an hour away from where she grew up. At first glance, Galloway is an idyllic escape for Claire, a scenic retreat full of slow-paced nostalgia, as well as a place where her sister seemed truly happy in that last summer before she vanished. It feels like the perfect plan to pass the time. However, as soon as Claire starts to settle in, she stumbles across an old diary written by one of the vineyard's owners, and what at first seems like a story of young rebellion and love turns into something much more sinister as it begins to describe details of various unsolved crimes. As the days stretch on, Claire finds herself becoming more and more secluded as she starts to obsess over the diary's content, as well as the lingering feeling that her own sister's disappearance may be somehow tied to it all. Galloway was supposed to be a place to help her move forward, but instead, Claire quickly finds herself immersed in her own dark and dangerous past. So again, color me intrigued. I really love the synopsis of that. I love when a plotline includes like an old diary being found and you get answers through the diary entries. I just think that's so intriguing, and I'm really curious to see how Stacey Willingham is going to include that into the story. So we are going to see if I enjoy this one a lot more than her last release. Another repeat author that has a new release coming out in August is Isabel Cañas with The Possession of Alba Diaz, which is going to be a horror novel. In 1765, plague sweeps through Zacatecas. Alba flees with her wealthy merchant parents and fiancé Carlos to his family's isolated mine for refuge, but safety proves fleeting as other dangers soon bear their teeth. Alba begins suffering from strange hallucinations, sleepwalking, and violent convulsions. She senses something cold lurking beneath her skin, something angry, something wrong. Elias, haunted by a troubled past, came to the new world to make his fortune and escape his family's legacy of greed. Alba, as his cousin's betrothed, is none of his business, which is of course why he can't help but notice the growing tension between them every time she enters the room, and why he notices her deteriorate when the demon's thirst for blood gets stronger. In the fight for her life, Alba and Elias become entangled with the occult, the church, long-kept secrets, and each other, not knowing that one of these things will spell their doom. So that definitely sounds like it's going to be an interesting story of possession. I have never read anything from this author, and I'm a little bit tentative as to whether Book of the Month would actually feature this story, just because they have not really been big on horror recently, right? That is not a genre that they have been well known for including. That's definitely more into Aardvark's purview now, so this could potentially be featured on Aardvark. I'm not entirely sure, but I did want to go ahead and mention it here since I don't do Aardvark predictions, and Isabel Cañas is a repeat Book of the Month author. Another heavy hitter that has a new release coming out in August is Karen Slaughter with the start of a new series, and the book is called We Are All Guilty Here. Now, Karen Slaughter has been featured on Book of the Month in the past. Her books, Pieces of Her and Girl Forgotten, which was the start of what I believe is only going to be a duology but could potentially branch into more, were featured on Book of the Month, so I do have every confidence that Karen Slaughter could be featured again, and quite honestly, I really hope that she is, because Karen Slaughter is one of my favorite thriller authors. She's definitely not afraid to go to the dark and devious places. I absolutely love her work, so I would absolutely love to see this one featured, which is why I'm including it here. This says, welcome to North Falls, a small town where everyone knows everyone, or so they think, until the night of the fireworks when two teenage girls vanish and the town ignites. For Officer Emmy Clifton, it's personal. She turned away when her best friend's daughter needed help, and now she must bring her home. But as Emmy combs through the puzzle the girls left behind, she realizes she never really knew them. Nobody did. Every teenage girl has secrets, but who would kill for them? And what else is the town hiding? So I really love that Karen Slaughter does tend to focus on like small town thrillers, and I think that as per usual, this is going to be phenomenal. It's probably going to deal with some really hard-hitting, difficult to read topics, so just be warned about that. But again, I would love to see this on Book of the Month in this category. All right, moving on into the romance category, I actually have 3 to talk with you about today. The first is a book called Well, Actually by Maisie Eddings, and one of the reasons why I wanted to include this here is because I have seen this go all around the bookish internet recently. It is getting a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, and so because of that, I think it could potentially be a strong contender for the romance category. This says, Eva Kitt never expected to be the host of Sausage Talk, interviewing B-list celebrities over lukewarm hot dogs instead of pursuing the journalism career she dreamed of. But when Eva's impromptu public call out of her college ex goes viral, she's thrust into the spotlight. It doesn't help said ex as Riley Cooper, a beloved social media personality that has built a platform on deconstructing toxic masculinity and teaching men how to be good partners. Forced to confront Riley on a live episode of Sausage Talk, he offers Eva a deal. Allow him to take her on a series of dates to make up for his toxic behavior, then debrief them on his channel to show he's changed. Eva refuses to play nice, but agrees to the scheme to advance her own career and continue defaming Riley's good name. When these manufactured dates start to feel real, Eva has to wonder if the boy that broke her heart has become the man that might heal it. Okay, that is really interesting. That's a very unique premise. I don't necessarily think I've seen anything like that in a romance in the past, so color me intrigued. I don't tend to gravitate towards the romances that Book of the Month features, but again, I've seen a lot of people really be excited about this book, so I would be willing to consider it if it were featured on Book of the Month. All right, next we have the newest release from Lynn Painter, who is again a repeat author, with a book called Made for Each Other. As a professional cleaner, Abby Mariano never thought her apartment would have any sort of infestation, but because of a building-wide outbreak, she now needs somewhere to stay for a week. As a part-time student with 2 jobs, she doesn't have many options. Then the solution presents itself. The owner of the penthouse she cleans is out of town for the week. She normally wouldn't consider it, but he's literally never around. She hasn't even met him. It goes great until one morning she finds 2 strangers in the kitchen. They're the parents of the penthouse owner, and they seem to think they've heard all about Abby, not as their son's maid, but as his girlfriend. Declan Powell has always put his career first, working his way up to become an executive at his company, but he still has his sights set on the next level. When his parents mention that they met his girlfriend Abby, he all but chokes on his escargot. As wonderful as it sounds, he doesn't actually have a girlfriend. He made her up to get everyone off his back. When Deck finds out who Abby really is, he makes her a proposition. Pretend to date him and he'll provide everything she needs during their little arrangement. What harm would it do? It's purely business, not pleasure. Right? So we're gonna have a fake dating scenario. So the beginning of this reminds me very tangentially of While You Were Sleeping, that Sandra Bullock movie where somebody is in a coma and the family assumes that she is this guy's girlfriend because of various circumstances. And in this instance, she is living in the penthouse that she cleans because the owner is rarely there. And when she wakes up, the parents of this penthouse owner are there and they just assume that she is his girlfriend. And it sounds like she might go along with it. I'm not entirely sure, but it sounds really cute, really intriguing. I've never read anything from Lynn Painter. I've heard great things about her, so I know a lot of people would be really excited to see this one featured. All right, and then the last one that I have for the romance category is called Rivals to Lovers by Elise Wayland. And the reason why I wanted to feature this here is because it says it's perfect for fans of Emily Henry and Allie Hazelwood, both of whom are heavy hitter authors, both of whom have been featured on Book of the Month in the past. So I definitely think that this is a romance that would be right up Book of the Month's alley. This says Mo Denton has been obsessed with the classic feminist novel, The Proud and the Lost, for as long as she can remember. When Mo puts everything she has into writing a modern adaptation of her all-time favorite book, her agent, Yuri, loves it, but can't pitch it anywhere. The original author's estate must approve any adaptation, and so far, it has never allowed one to go forward. The agent who represents the estate, Wes Spencer, is also working on an updated version of the beloved story. Promoting Mo's project would go against Wes's own interests, and he's reluctant to bring it to Estelle Morgan, the elderly daughter of the original novelist. But when Yuri contacts Estelle herself, Estelle invites Mo and Wes to her home for a weekend where they will pitch each book to her and let her decide whose book will be approved and whose work will be destined for deletion. Soon, Mo and Wes realize that they have more in common than just the love of this original book. As they grow closer and wait for the estate's decision, will the secrets Wes is keeping ruin the bond between them, or can they find their way to a happy ending? So this is giving great big beautiful life vibes, and y'all know how I felt about that book. I really liked the story overall, and I had a good reading experience, but this is a book that tried to do too much. Now this definitely seems like a different premise, a different take on that, and I'm really hoping that this author is going to be able to do it more justice, especially if they are trying to make this a romance, because the romance in Great Big Beautiful Life was definitely more of a disappointment to me. So we're gonna see. I'm interested to hear more thoughts about this one to see how strong it really is. All right, moving on into the historical fiction category, we have a book called LA Women by Ella Berman. After a steady descent from literary stardom, Lane Warren is back. She secured a new book deal based off of the life of her sometimes friend and more often rival, Gala Margolis. Lane's only problem is that notorious free spirit Gala has been missing for months. 10 years earlier, Gala was a charming socialite and Lane was a Hollywood outsider amidst the glittering 1960s LA party scene. Though they were never best friends, Lane found Gala sharp and compelling. Gala liked that Lane took her seriously. They were both writers and they were drawn to each other. That was until Gala's star began to rise and Lane grew envious. Then Lane did something that she would never be able to take back, changing the trajectories of both of their lives. Bold, dazzling, and crackling with tension, LA Women plunges readers into the legendary parties and unparalleled creativity of iconic Laurel Canyon while exploring the impossible choices women face when ambition collides with intimacy. At what cost does great art emerge, and who pays the price? Okay, so that sounds kind of interesting. You have a story that's primarily going to be set in the 60s and 70s. It sounds like in Southern California, so you are definitely going to get more of that classic Hollywood vibe. You have two women who were friends until one of them, their star, began to rise. The other got a little bit jealous, but now the famous one went missing. So there could be a little bit of a mystery aspect to this as well. This is another one that I've seen kind of floating around the bookish community, but I don't know much about it. So this is another one that I probably would not pick up, as I'm very picky about what historical fiction I read these days, but I would certainly be interested to learn more about it for sure. All right, moving into the literary / contemporary fiction category, this is actually a little bit smaller than it has been in the past few months. I think I only have 4 books to talk with you about, which is unusual. It's typically like 6 or 7. So the first book that I have is a book called Atomic Hearts by Megan Cummings. 16 and living in a small Michigan town, Gertie is harboring a secret heavy enough to fracture her closest friendship. She and Cindy have been bonded since birth by the fact that their fathers are addicts, and their unsteady home lives are a little easier when they are together, sprawled on a trampoline with pilfered vodka and dreams of moving to New York. After an accident involving a bonfire and an aerosol canister sends Gertie to the hospital, she finds herself with nowhere to go but Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to live with her newly sober father. She sees it as a chance to escape the hometown drama she's caused, but drama finds her all the same. Terrified of the consequences of being honest with Cindy, her sole refuge is the fantasy novel she's writing, a portal to another world and the story of a young girl roaming a strange land, trusting her wits to survive. Years later, when ghosts of the past surface, Gertie decides to write again about that explosive summer from the stabler shores of adulthood. Powered by the fierce imagination of her youth, Gertie finally allows herself the grace to tell a version of her narrative that she always hoped would be true. So what I'm getting from this is it's kind of like a growing up, coming of age story. We have a girl who has definitely had a turbulent childhood because of her dad's addiction, but after some drama goes down in her hometown, she's sent to live with her now sober father, but drama is finding her and things are going down in this new place, and she finds refuge in a fantasy novel that she is writing, and then a few years later, she's going back and she's reviewing this and she starts to write again from the perspective of adulthood. And again, this says that it's a story of the ways we can be saved by friendship, love, and imagination. So I think that there's probably going to be some really important themes within the story, important messages. I'm not sure how intrigued I am by the synopsis of this one, if I'm honest, but I do think that this is a strong contender for this category on Book of the Month. Okay, and this next one is another one that I've seen going all around the bookish internet. It seems like it's going to be a very popular literary fiction type story. It's a book called LovedOne by Aisha Muharrar. I'm very sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of that last name. It says, when her first love turned close friend Gabe dies unexpectedly at 29, 30-year-old Julia is launched into into an intercontinental quest to recover his lost possessions. Her journey takes her from Los Angeles to London and into the murky realm of the past. It also sets Julia on a collision course with the last woman he loved, a guarded, self-possessed florist and restaurateur named Elizabeth, who insists on withholding Gabe's beloved guitar, one of the departed indie rock musician's dearest belongings, for reasons Julia can't understand. Both women, it turns out, have something to hide and soon find themselves engaged in a complex dance of withholding and revelation. An emotional mystery spanning years, continents, and relationship statuses, LovedOne introduces Aisha Muharrar as a novelist intimately attuned to the intricacies of love, memory, and ambiguous loss. What happens when we admit that the deepest feelings never die? How do we reconcile various and sometimes contradictory truths about those closest to us? An engrossing and profoundly moving coming-of-age story with a powerful love at its heart, LovedOne is poised to become an instant classic. So I am actually really intrigued by the synopsis of this one. I do think it's going to be a very slow, character-driven story, but it follows a woman who lost one of her dearest friends very young, and she's on a mission to collect his possessions. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm not sure the catalyst behind that and what right she thinks she has to these possessions, but she does meet the last woman who he was in love with, and that person is not giving up one of his prized possessions, which is a guitar. And it sounds like these women are getting to know each other. They are both hiding things from each other, but both revealing things to each other as well. And I think that could probably be a very powerful story. There's definitely going to be a lot of grief involved. And so this is certainly one that I may be willing to check out if it were featured on Book of the Month. All right, the next book that I have here is a book called Full Bloom by Francesca Saratella. Reeling from a breakup and overlooked at her job as a lighting designer, Iris Sunagrin finds herself stuck, disconnected, and lonely in crowded New York City. Her wealthy friends are married and having babies while she's trying to pay for freezing her eggs, and the future she longs for feels out of reach. Then a mysterious neighbor, an older French woman, makes her a gift, a bespoke perfume. One spritz, a dab behind the ears, and Iris feels like a different woman. Suddenly, she is the object of every man's desire, and she can satisfy her own hungers for sex, love, and ambition. She can cast off her inhibitions and use her newfound allure to dazzle the high-profile client, attract a man who excites her like no other, and access all the rarefied spaces that once excluded her. Invigorated by the perfume, Iris embodies her maximum power, a flower fully bloomed. But there is a danger in connecting to our primal emotions. Scent awakens buried memories and nightmares of the childhood house fire she barely survived, and they return to haunt her. As Iris ventures deeper into the glamorous and male-dominated worlds of New York real estate, dimly lit steakhouses, and beachfront mansions in the Hamptons, she finds herself getting closer to unspeakable truths about the people she trusted, about the people she loved, about the new circle of power players that invited her in. A sensual and seductive novel set among the upper echelons of New York City, Full Bloom is at once a poignant story of becoming and a riveting mystery that asks, who are you without your inhibitions? Does being wanted get you what you want, or will you be devoured by desire? So I don't know about you, but that synopsis does absolutely nothing for me. I feel like it was a lot of words saying almost nothing at all, and I still have no idea what this book is about, but that definitely seems like it could be something that is right up Book of the Month's alley. It sounds like it could be a little bit highbrow, and I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. This is not certainly one that is on my radar. It's not something that I would pick up if it were featured on Book of the Month, but again, I do think that this could be a contender for this category, so I wanted to mention it here. All right, everyone, and the last book that I have for this category is a book called Seduction Theory by Emily Adrian. Now, after reading the synopsis of this is another one that I'm not entirely sure how likely Book of the Month featuring this. However, I thought that it was intriguing. This again could be another one that's more poised for aardvark, but we're gonna see. This says, Simone is the star of Edwards University's creative writing department, renowned wolf scholar, grief memoirist, and campus sex icon. Her less glamorous and ostensibly devoted husband Ethan is a forgotten novelist and lecturer in the same department. According to Simone and Ethan and everyone on campus, their marriage is perfect. That is, until Ethan sleeps with the department administrative assistant, Abigail, and the couple's faith in their flawless relationship is rattled. Simone, meanwhile, has secrets of her own. While Ethan's away for the summer, she grows inordinately close with her advisee, graduate student Roberta Robbie Green. Behind Simone's back, Robbie fictionalizes her mentor's marriage in a breathtakingly invasive MFA thesis. Determined to tell her version of the story, Robbie paints a revealing portrait of Simone, Ethan, Abigail, and even herself, scratching at the very surface of what may or may not be the truth. Simultaneously provocative and tender, Seduction Theory exposes the intoxicating nature of power and attraction and is a masterful demonstration of how love and betrayal can coexist. So this definitely encompasses themes that I feel like Book of the Month does like to explore. There is certainly going to be infidelity, there's going to be certainly complicated marriage and relationship dynamics, and there's going to be a student who is like documenting all of this in a thesis, which I find really, really intriguing. I am somebody who definitely doesn't like to hear about cheating in books unless it's going to be explored through nuance. As somebody who has never cheated, who would never cheat, and who would never stay with somebody who has cheated on me, I find myself fascinated by people who do cheat, and I want to explore their motivations, and I want to explore their relationship dynamics and the way that their mind works, you know what I mean? And this sounds like that is what this book is trying to do. Who knows? It could be really, really interesting. So that's why I wanted to include it here. All right, and now we are moving into the final category, which is going to be fantasy, sci-fi, and magical realism. We do, of course, have a very popular author coming out with a book in August. That is R.F. Kuang with Catabasis or Catabasis. I'm not entirely sure how you are supposed to pronounce that, but Book of the Month has featured R.F. Kuang in the past, and so it's highly likely that she would be featured again. My understanding is that this book is supposed to be like a modern take on Dante's Inferno. Alice Law has only ever had one goal: to become one of the brightest minds in the field of magic. She has sacrificed everything to make that a reality: her pride, her health, her love life, and most definitely her sanity. All to work with Professor Jacob Grimes at Cambridge, the greatest magician in the world. That is until he dies in a magical accident that could possibly be her fault. Grimes is now in hell, and she is going in after him because his recommendation could hold her very future in his now incorporeal hands, and even death is not going to stop the pursuit of her dreams, nor will the fact that her rival, Peter Murdoch, has come to the very same conclusion. With nothing but the tales of Orpheus and Dante to guide them, enough chalk to draw the pentagrams necessary for their spells, and the burning desire to make all the academic trauma mean anything, they set off across hell to save a man they didn't even like. But hell is not like the storybook says. Magic isn't always the answer, and there's something in Alice and Peter's past that could forge them into the perfect allies or lead to their doom. So this definitely sounds like it's going to be very highbrow. I am not the biggest fan of R.F. Kuang. I read The Poppy War and didn't love it, and I never continued with anything else by her. I haven't read some of her other books like Yellowface because I do believe that she incorporates a lot of social commentary into her stories, which is just not something that I am intrigued by, but I do believe that this could potentially be August's Fairy Loot pick. So I have a feeling that it's going to be coming to me, and if it's going to come to me, I may as well go ahead and give it a chance. I am really intrigued by the synopsis of this, and I do want to see what R.F. Kuang can do outside of the Poppy War series, and maybe if I do really enjoy this, I would go back to read Babel and Yellowface because a lot of people love them. A lot of people really enjoy those stories, and I would be willing to give her a chance with those ones to see if I could appreciate her as well, especially if I really do enjoy this one. So we're going to see, but like I said, it definitely sounds like it's going to be a little bit pretentious, a little bit highbrow, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. It has to be done in a particular way in order for me to appreciate that type of writing style. So we are going to see, but I know a lot of people love R.F. Kuang. They would be very happy to see this here in August. Another heavy hitter that has a new release coming out in August is T. Kingfisher with her book Hemlock and Silver, and if I understand correctly, this is going to be a Snow White retelling. T. Kingfisher is another author that I'm very curious about because T. Kingfisher is all over the place, but I've never picked up any of their works because I don't like retellings. I really don't, and so I'm just worried that I'm not going to vibe with their work. If you think I could enjoy their work, please let me know, because again, I am very intrigued. This says, Healer Anja regularly drinks poison, not to die, but to save, seeking cures for those everyone else has given up on. But a summons from the king interrupts her quiet, herb-obsessed life. His daughter Snow is dying, and he hopes Anja's unorthodox methods can save her. Aided by a taciturn guard, a narcissistic cat, and a passion for the scientific method, Anja rushes to treat Snow, but nothing seems to work. That is, until she finds a secret world hidden inside a magic mirror. This dark realm may hold the key to what is making Snow sick, or it might be the thing that kills them all. So yes, very much a fairy tale. I am not sure if this is something that I would pick up, but I am very curious about T. Kingfisher. I know a lot of people love this author and would love to see their book featured in August. And this last one is one that I found very intriguing after reading the synopsis. It is a book called The Book of Lost Hours by Haley Gelfuso. Enter the time space, a soaring library filled with books containing the memories of those who have passed and accessed only by specially made watches once passed from father to son, but mostly now in government hands. This is where 11-year-old Lissavet Levy finds herself trapped in 1938, waiting for her watchmaker father to return for her. When he doesn't, she grows up among the books and specters, able to see the world only by sifting through the memories of those who came before her, as she realizes that government agents are entering the time space to destroy books and maintain their preferred version of history. She sets about saving these scraps in her own volume of memories until the appearance of an American spy named Ernest Duquesne in 1949 offers her a glimpse of the world she left behind, setting her on a course to change history and possibly time-space itself. In 1965, 16-year-old Amelia Duquesne is mourning the disappearance of her uncle Ernest when an enigmatic CIA agent approaches her to enlist her help in tracking down a book of memories her uncle had once sought. But when Amelia visits the time space for the first time, she realizes that the past and the truth might not be as linear as she likes to believe. That sounds absolutely phenomenal. This is definitely going to be wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, and I am here for it. I think that that sounds really unique. I wouldn't pick it up in this edition in Book of the Month because I like my fantasy and science fiction in their normal editions to match all of the other books on my shelves, but this is certainly one that I would be willing to add to my TBR to collect at some point in the future for sure. All right, everyone, that is it. Those are all the books that I think could potentially be featured on Book of the Month in August, either as main selections or as add-on selections. As always, if there are any new releases coming out in August that you think could potentially be featured, please leave that information down below, or just let me know what books you are excited out of the ones listed to see on Book of the Month, or whether you potentially would pick or pass if any of these are featured. And as always, if you like this video or if you just like me, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I typically post 2 videos a week, one on Wednesdays, one on Sundays, and I would love to connect with you in any of those future videos. Y'all know how much I enjoy connecting with you in the comments of my videos. It just makes my day. But if you would prefer to connect with me outside of BookTube, you can always find links to my Goodreads, Instagram, Patreon, and YouTube memberships down below, along with any books featured in the video. Until next time, y'all. Bye.